So I came here to tell you that our education system is failing disadvantaged children. Our life outcomes are impacted by factors that are just outside of our control. Just think about the 258 million children in several parts of the world that are unable to go to school. Some say that talent has no borders, but none of us can choose the country in which we were born. What we can't also choose is any of the circumstances in which we grow up. Even for someone like me from a high-income country, I'm thinking about stuff like our gender, our ethnicity, perhaps a disability, and most definitely poverty. And I'm pretty sure I've never met anyone in the world who would choose to be born poor. I did go to a very good university, just like this one here in Lisbon. I always thought that going to university was due to my own merit. Someone made me believe this. However, going back to my time in my secondary school, I remember I had a colleague who used to work at McDonald's in the afternoon and evenings, whereas I had plenty of time to study just after school. She was usually tired, definitely really stressed, but back then, with those lenses, I just thought she was just like any other colleague who simply didn't have good grades. I Googled her before coming to this TED Talk. I was really pleased to learn that she graduated from university, which really means that we both got a higher education degree, but I'm pretty sure I'll never live up to her merit. The truth is, students from disadvantaged backgrounds face barriers that result in decreased academic achievement. I'm thinking about having less incentive to study, perhaps against working to help your family. They have less parental support for sure. They have less access to resources such as books or tech. And their hard life conditions it doesn't enable them to concentrate as well as we do. Less access to healthcare jeopardizes their chances to thrive or even to survive. I used to teach in this very same university. During that time, I have literally thousands of young, bright, and very ambitious students. However, at the same time, I was also working in this charity in Amadora, which is just outside of Lisbon. I remember I was tutoring this kid when he asked me, "Miguel, why should I care about school?" I was slightly puzzled by this question. I tried to convince him, well, if you go to school and have good grades, you might end up going to university, and then you can have a good payslip, and for sure then, you'll get a better life. His answer was sobering. "Miguel, how many kids from this neighborhood do you know that go to the same university where I teach? You're actually the only person I ever knew in my entire life that went to university." I was mortified. And he went on. "Our teachers tell us that there's no point in doing so. It would be more beneficial to perhaps have some training to be a hairdresser, if we're lucky enough, a plumber." Do you know what? He was right. Our social economical background is the biggest predictor of our academic achievement. Our mother's education levels are particularly relevant in this regard. We know that in Portugal, students from disadvantaged backgrounds are 2 years behind their peers in learning. 2 years behind. If you look at their mothers in primary school, you'll find out that 80% of the students' mothers in Portugal do not have a higher education degree. Statistically, this means that their children will have much less likelihood to excel at school. In its own turn, their own children will have less likelihood to excel at school as well, meaning that we are creating a cycle of intergenerational poverty that they might never escape from. But going back to my story, the bit that really puzzled me was when he said, "My teacher tells me that there's no point in doing so." And I thought to myself, wow, when I was at school, all of my teachers would expect me to go to university. In fact, all of my childhood friends went to university. But now that I think about it a bit, I am white, I am male, And my state school university was just across the street from the only Ferrari stand in Lisbon. The big question we have here is, can we really, really blame his teacher? And let me tell you something about teaching. It is really, 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 really hard. Can you imagine being thrown upon a classroom with 30 fanatic pupils? Now imagine doing so in a region where perhaps most people are really poor. The systemic disadvantage. Their parents perhaps have 2, 3 jobs. They have anxiety induced by poverty. They live in overcrowded houses, and they might feel hunger. And yes, this is something that happens right here in Portugal and in Lisbon. In Portugal, there are loads of children who live in overcrowded houses. We have 850,000 children in Portugal under the age of 12. 26,000 of them do not have enough money to buy food whenever they want. If you look at how they live, you'll find out that in Lisbon, 1 in every 6 children lives in an overcrowded house. If you drive further south to Lavre Algarve, you'll find out that 1 in every 3 children lives in an overcrowded house. Now, these were the houses, and these were the parents we sent our children home to. I'm sure you all know, you all remember early 2020 and 2021, when we had 2 general lockdowns. Children were sent to school to be homeschooled by their parents, who were juggling between their jobs and their children at home. I guess some people around here can remember that. As well as you students. I mean, how hard did you find it to try to learn through a screen? It is absolutely not the same thing. And this is quite a big bang. The good thing is that I guess society finally realized how important teachers are and how important teachers really are to give every child a great education. Now, the issue here is really, really the pandemic. We've learned that during school closures, all children in average were 2 months behind in learning. If you go and look in England, you'll find out that those from most disadvantaged backgrounds are 7 months behind. In the Netherlands, they did a really good study where they looked at 350,000 exams before and after the pandemic, and they realized that pupils did no learning, almost, during lockdown. And if you're born in a household where your parents have less education, you're 60% more likely to have suffered from learning loss. This is a proper Big Bang. But I also guess that this is a very good proof that face-to-face teaching and teachers are here to stay. I remember many people thought, well, now you can learn everything on YouTube. Yeah, that's fine for some people, but the attainment gap is really, really crushing. The truth is, the quality of an education system will never surpass the quality of its teachers. It does make sense, right? It's like in a restaurant, perhaps. The quality of a restaurant will never surpass the quality of its chef. Same with an hospital. It will always have to do with the quality of their doctors and nurses. So I think this kind of makes sense. Now, big Q is, we had always knew that teachers are the single best tool we have to improve life outcomes for children and especially for those from disadvantaged backgrounds. We know that teachers are 2 to 3 times more important in raising the attainment than any other school-level factor. We also know that if you have access to a great teacher in the system, you will learn in 6 months what an average teacher will take a year to teach. If you're unlucky and get one of the worst teachers, the same learning will take you 2 years. The big problem is, in areas of the highest deprivation, you won't really get access to great teachers that often. It's really harder to recruit them. It's also harder to retain them in the profession. And really, really harder to be effective teachers when students are not engaged. There was a really, really important paper by Raz Shetty, Friedman, and Rockoff. These are guys from Harvard and Columbia University. They looked at over 1 million records for tax and school for children. They've realized that the quality of teaching was a really, really important tool to help them get better incomes when they grew up. This means that teaching is a really, really good tool to help us break the cycle of intergenerational poverty. If you get a good teacher in a classroom full of deprived young children, that good teacher will help them get a good payslip. Now, I guess you're all wondering, great, Miguel, but how do we really get good teachers? The big problem is that there's no silver bullets. It's really, really hard to get simple answers to very, very complex problems. And this is one of the cases. However, there are some good clues we can think about. The first line of thought is that, well, we could try to recruit the very best to the teaching profession. Some countries seem to got this right. I'm thinking about Finland, South Korea, or Singapore. They're able to recruit their teachers from the top graduates of universities, which sounds pretty good. But I'm not sure if it is enough. Again, there is no simple solutions to complex problems. But we know that great teaching requires passion, hard work, as well as commitment, development, and expertise. That's why I firmly believe that professional development for teachers could be a great tool to help support children. There's a very important paper by the Education Policy Institute in the UK that looked at how impactful teachers could be in improving pupil salaries in the future. They realized if we helped every teacher in professional development and gave them 35 hours per year of training, they will help their children achieve better lifelong earnings. The impact of this would be something as big as £61 billion in the UK if we roll this out for 10 years. That means it is a return on investment of almost 19 times the cost, which sounds like a very, very and pretty good deal for me. The thing is, the time to act is really now. If you think about all those children who stayed at home to learn, will know that their lifelong income and their life experiences will be impacted for many years to come. On average, each year you go to school will equal to 10% more in your earnings throughout your lifetime. However, because we've closed schools for a while now, that means that those children will earn less when they grow up. Right here in Portugal, just during the first lockdown, there was a very important paper by the OECD who realized that all the income that was lost was equivalent to 212 billion euros of GDP. That's almost a year without nothing happened. Someone's background should not determine their aspirations in life, but unfortunately they do, and they will continue doing it during lockdowns. The time to act is now, and I guess the solution has been in front of our eyes the whole time. We need to give every child the teachers they need and deserve, no matter what the background. Thank you.